Welcome in everyone to Parenting Playbook. So, I hate to say it, summer is wrapping up. It's time to start thinking about getting back to school. I can see all the kids already covering their ears. They are not ready for this. But parents, we need to get prepared. So now Parenting Playbook is here to be that resource to help you with all those needs for back to school. So first, let's talk about back to school shopping. It's something we're all going to start thinking about because especially with the sales tax holiday just around the corner. Joining me is Giselle Davy. You might recognize her from Macaroni Kid Newsletter, our publisher. Giselle, your Macaroni Kid Newsletter is such a valuable resource, really helps parents. First, let's talk about the stress that is involved in getting the kids ready. NerdWallet has said parents are going to spend, on average, over $600 per kid to get those kids ready. What are some ways that we can help parents?
Yes, so summer's wrapping up, and this can be a kind of a stressful transition for some parents, especially some with that budget constraints. And so, Macaroni Kid, we just put up an article that lists out some of the ways that we can save money. One of the ways that I thought was a great tip is shop your house first. See what you have already at home. I opened a closet and I was surprised to find some unopened, unused boxes of crayons and markers. I thought, wow, I didn't even know I had this in here. I found an unused backpack that probably a grandparent or an aunt or uncle gave to my kids. And so I would recommend to parents, walk around your house first and just see what you already have before stressing out over my kid needs this, and that for them specifically, and then getting the school list also, the supply list, and thinking, I can't afford all of this. Well, let's just see what we have at home first.
And go through the backpack that they wore all last year. I don't know about you, but I always find some interesting little tidbits in the bottom of that backpack. Crayons, pens, pencils. And one of the tips that I loved that you had was stop buying new pencil kits every year. Pencil kits are reusable. Yes, we can't. Pencils, we use them down to a nub. Pens. And that's something else. You have to think strategically, correct?
Yeah. I think this is also a really great opportunity to teach our children about budgeting and finance. So separating wants and needs. So saying, you know what, honey, let's say we have $40 or $100, whatever it is that we have for you specifically. And so if you want, a $40 or $60 backpack, that's going to eat up most of your budget. So what are some things that the children can also, you can work with them to teach them about budgeting, like what's a splurge and what's something that we can save money on, and invite them into that process so that we can use this as an opportunity so they can learn also. And have a say.
And one of those other things, I think, as a parent that you can work with your kids, explain what sales are.
Yes.
Check those sales before
and off-brand,
shopping.
Generic. Especially when it comes to I went to Ocean State with my kids, and they had $100, and just having my son say over and over again, but Mom, I only have $30 left. And I go, yeah, off-brand, baby. That's why Mommy gets generic. We don't have to get the brand name or the really shiny, pretty packaging. When I look at some of the sales that are available, you can compare, the same box and arguably sometimes the same quality of colored pencils. One is 50 cents and one is almost $3. So, if we're really tied to getting a specific brand, if the kid wants that, okay, well, it's part of your budget. If not, let's get the 50-cent brand.
And the other idea that I loved, talk to the parents. You're all in the same boat. Right now, it's tight. Food is more expensive. Gas is more expensive. So buy in bulk. Share the costs. I never thought about that.
Yeah, so I'm not somebody who is blessed with the ability to do math in my head. So I whip my phone out, I get the calculator, and I think, okay, so if I buy this and I do the math and I'm like, buy ounce or buy unit, it actually is cheaper to buy some things in bulk. And some people may not have time to go store to store, but luckily we can go online and just cost compare, look at Amazon, look at some other sites online, Walmart, Target, and just compare the prices and get what actually works, especially if you're buying for multiple children.
And when you have multiple children, like you and I both do, the other interesting tidbit I liked is instead of saying, okay, time to buy a whole new wardrobe, how about, because we are getting so much right now, we have to get all the school supplies, one pair of sneakers, 2 new outfits, not 5, not 6. See what you want. See what the temperatures are. Maybe you have a hot classroom. Maybe you have a cold classroom. Maybe you like to have a sweater. These are all things that I just never thought about.
Yeah, so one thing that you can do is, again, buying ahead of time. So like I'll look at sales that are off season, and I'm like, honey, let's buy your winter clothes now because they're on sale instead of waiting until we need it. And then just stretching that budget out over the first quarter of school to say, this is what you need for the first couple of weeks. And so we're going to buy that now, and then we're going to stretch that out to maybe even send out, if it is something that would be appropriate for your family, like a wish list to grandparents, aunts, uncles, to say, you know what, if you'd like to pitch in, my child would love to have this pair of sneakers or whatever, and if they would like to pitch in, they can. And just looking at what do we need to get started, and then using Black Friday sales, Prime Day sales, the tax-free sales to get those things later on in the school year.
And tax-free weekend.
Yeah.
I know that is a weekend that I used to always take the kids back to school shopping, because I find that stores know that's what you're looking for, so they make sure to even up those sales a little bit more. Here are some startling facts that NerdWallet in their back to school surveys. Over half, 51% of the parents feel overwhelmed by financial requests already from their children's schools, because in addition to the back to school supplies, they all have fundraisers. What do you recommend to parents who are like, okay, well, I need to get back to school supplies. It's time to sign up for all the sporting events, the dance classes. That could be $1,000 for a year. How do you prioritize all this?
So two things I would look at would be to reach out to the teachers directly to say, maybe not if you don't feel comfortable sharing your actual budget, but say, what are some of the items that you really need for the first quarter of school, for the first semester? What are the items that you really need? And then focus on purchasing those. Because I think if I were in their shoes as a teacher, I would rather have something rather than nothing. So I'm willing to work with the parents' constraints. And so if you reach out to the parents directly or to some of the programs directly and say, what do you need just for the first semester, instead of getting overwhelmed and thinking, I need all of this now. You may not need all of it right now. And so you can pace yourself in purchasing some of these items. And then the second thing is there are so many awesome organizations in our area. Libraries do giveaways, churches do giveaways, local organizations like Square One, the Boys and Girls Club, there's the Alvin J, I can't remember, there's a fund, a scholarship that does giveaways. And so we actually posted to Facebook like some of the giveaways in the area. And so you can get a lot of these supplies, haircuts, braiding, backpacks. You can get a lot of these things for free.
And I think another important thing to note is don't feel like you have to keep up with everyone else. That back to school pressure. I understand that your neighbor next door may be able to afford that $60 North Face backpack. You can't. So what? There are other options out there. Go to Target. You'll find just as cute of a one for $14, $15. Walmart. Another idea that I really liked, go to the thrift stores.
One thing I think as women we can understand this is when somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, I love your dress," immediately we tell them where we bought it.
Yes, so true.
It has pockets, and we always share that. And so with my kids, sometimes they say, "Oh, Mom, you're embarrassing me," and I say, "No, women, we love to say, oh yeah, I got it on sale." And so teaching them, you know what, there is absolutely no shame, even if you can't afford the name brand, there still is no shame in saving some money, because you can then use that money for other things. And so just teaching our children, it does not matter. There's no value in you as a person if you have, off-brand or generic, or if you do have the name brand. If you can afford it and you want to splurge on it, awesome. But if you don't or can't, there's no harm, no foul, And so teaching our kids, what do you really want to spend money on? What is most important to you? And what do you want to invest in? And we can teach that value to them and instill that at a young age to say, let's think about that now, because these are skills they're going to carry their whole lives.
Another startling fact that came out of this survey that I did not realize, more than a third of parents, 37%, say their children are likely going to miss out on at least one school activity this upcoming year due to cost. And they're referring to sports in most cases, because even the price of sports and equipment and what you need for that is also going up. How do you talk to your kids about that?
So, talking to our kids about that and saying, how can we as a family, so there's you separate that, right? So how can we as a family approach that? Like, let's come up with some ideas of how we can either, crowdfund some of the expenses, Or, when I was a kid, my brother, I remember he came to me and he had me make him little business cards, and he went and put them in all the mailboxes in our neighborhood, and he actually cut grass and washed cars, and that's how he made, and he did like $5. And so that was in the 90s, so maybe for inflation, do $10, But you
true entrepreneur.
Yeah, so you can say, how can we, because when I think also when adults see kids doing things, they're more apt to like reach in their pocket a little deeper and give more than 50 cents for a cup of lemonade. And so asking your kids, like, what can we do right now that we can, maybe try to hustle, some neighbors or some friends and do a lemonade stand. And so we're not asking for a handout, but we're just asking, if you want to stop by Sunday afternoon, my kids are going to do a lemonade stand. I went to a friend's lemonade stand for her kids in East Longmeadow, and all their friends and neighbors came out.
What a
And
great
so
idea.
I know they made, Mikey and Emmy really hustled my wallet that day, but I was so proud of them. I thought that was so cool. And then also, if the parents have the ability or have the time, and luckily we're in a digital age, and so a lot of that can be done from just texting or email, but also maybe start a classroom group or a soccer league group, and just asking, like, how can we as parents do fundraisers and provide this, from the community, and local organizations versus the parents feeling the full brunt. And so I have a nephew who's very involved in sports, and actually a niece as well. And my sister-in-law will send out the texts and for the fundraisers. And so even though I may not be able to go and attend physically every event to support my niece and nephew, I may be able to give a couple dollars to support them.
And I think the most important thing that parents have to remember, and I know I have to remind myself of this, if you feel pressure, if you are stressed out, they are going to get stressed out. So put a plan together. Let them be involved in that plan. And I know I say to my son sometimes, this is just how it is.
Yes.
Sorry.
My kids sometimes, my daughter, my oldest is 8, and sometimes she'll say, but this is hard. And I go, I know, but you know what? You can do hard things, honey. And I also, sometimes it just is hard. And listen, mommy's a lot older than you, and it's hard for me too, but I try to get into a solutions mindset. So some of the ideas I might throw out are not really reasonable. They might be crazy. And my daughter has told me, Mommy, you're crazy. And I go, yeah, but you know what? I got to start somewhere. So I'll get a pen and paper and say, let's see what we can do. What can we do to drum up support? When I was in high school, there was a young lady who would walk around and she would sell little bags that she had made. And so she would sell them for $5 that she would sew. And I thought that was so cool. So then I thought, what can I do? And so some of my ideas were not very great. I bought candy bars to sell, and I ate most of them. And so,
although when your daughter is fast forward 25 years from now, she's going to realize Mom wasn't so crazy.
Yeah, just think, what can we come
Mom
up
gave
with,
me some great
Yeah.
ideas. Maybe adulting isn't so bad.
Yeah, and and I want my kid, for me especially, one value I really want to instill into my children is to have a solutions mindset. So not, maybe a 5-minute pity party. Okay, now let's get over that and let's say, what can we do right now that that can possibly help the situation that we're in. Like, let's just come up with some solutions. Let's just sit down with a pen and paper, write out a list, and then let's just start knocking them out and just see what works. Maybe the lemonade stand is a bust. Okay. But then maybe in our family, what would work is just sending out a wish list from Amazon to our family members.
It's
maybe
a
that will work.
solutions mindset while staying
Yeah.
positive.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
not an end. It's just a new beginning.
Yeah, and sometimes I have to tell my kids, it just is what it is. You have to reuse your swimsuit, but I was able to hustle you a new coat.
I like that. All right.
We're gonna work with what we have, and sometimes I'll tell them, "Hey, Mommy's been wearing the same swimsuit for 12 years, so
Well, I'm
not
impressed
that
by
bad."
that for very other reasons. But, well, thank you so much, Giselle. As always,
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure. You have such great advice.
Thank you.
Macaroni Kid newsletter. Now, Parenting Playbook is here for you for the next couple of weeks. We're going to be helping you with all of these back to school issues. We're going to discuss everything from anxiety, empty nest syndrome, transitions, the transition from elementary, middle, high school. These are all big things. We are here to help. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.